Welcome to the Service MVP podcast, and my name is Joe Crisara, America's Service Sales Coach. And I'm here today with an exciting new guest, Dominic Rubino from Profit Toolbelt podcast. I happen to be hosted on his podcast, so we're switching
That's right.
roles today. Dominic,
Yeah,
thanks for being a guest on my podcast.
absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I actually had to look at my calendar and say, am I interviewing Joe or is Joe interviewing me this time? Because yeah, you were already on my show.
Right. Well, I tell you what, I just during the interview, I was intrigued by just some of the knowledge you have, and I figured we'd give you a chance to take the stage and give
Well,
you the
thank you.
open mic today. Dominic, why don't you talk a little bit about how you the winding road that led you here to begin this Profit Toolbelt podcast and the other consulting type businesses you offer and things like that. Tell us about that journey a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it probably doesn't start where you think. I started down this journey because I sucked at business. And I did, and I think the very first thing is just understanding that I knew that I wasn't very good at business. And so I had to go get better. So I started reading books and taking courses. I would have, if we dialed the calendar back 30 years, I would have sought you out to do that, because that was where I was weakest, was figuring out the business of the business of business. And so started taking courses and started moving along in that direction. Then eventually used it on my own businesses and then became a business coach.
Nice, nice. So it was the struggle that jettisoned you toward information to look to search to seek information that could help you
Yeah.
improve. I mean, thank God you had the struggle, right? Because if you didn't
Oh
have
my
that
God.
struggle, you would have been stuck at the status quo. You would have been thinking you're fine.
I think my attitude has always been the thing that's different though, because I can remember one day, and I was running a painting company at the time, and it was probably the worst day in my life of being a contractor. So much, Joe, I was driving through an intersection, and I remember thinking, I hope I get hit by another car so I don't have to finish this day.
Wow, that's a
Yeah,
pretty dire consequence to hope
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. And
And I can
but
see
you have to look at that day and say, what am I going to do different? Because this can't continue.
that's really good. Well, it's I think that's the first thing is to accept that there's a problem bigger than you can solve on your own, right? Does that make
Yeah,
sense? Or that you have to recognize that you got into this situation when you're struggling, but you're not going to be able to get out of it on your own. That the same thoughts that the same thinking that got you into it needs to change. Does that make sense,
right.
sir?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
tell us about some of the things that you adopted, some of the mentors you had, and people that kind of helped you up and gave you a leg up on that.
Well, actually, that becomes one of the coolest stories ever, because I started, you got to remember, I started on this path. I'm old. If I take off my hat, you see the color of my hair here.
Totally, yeah.
It's mostly gray. Um, but I remember I was reading books on business improvement, sales improvement. I know you're a sales expert, but one of my mentors back then was a guy named Brian Tracy.
Mm.
Well, dial the calendar forward a couple of years, I end up becoming his business partner.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, pretty
That is
cool, right?
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but it certainly didn't come easy. But I had to go out there and learn how to sell, how to
Hmm.
have the confidence in myself in marketing, how to put together the systems to run a business. And so I've been fortunate. As I became a business coach, I started to apply what I learned as a coach to my own businesses. I took one business from zero. I mean, it was nothing but an Excel spreadsheet, and I built it to 120 million in sales. And I sold that company. After that is when I became partners with Brian Tracy. And with Brian, I was a business coach. I was actually the master franchisor for business coaching all across the world using Brian's brand and system. And then I sold that company. And that's how I started the podcast, because I always loved construction and contracting, and podcasts just resonated with me. So I started doing that.
Well, definitely, it's a great way to broadcast the information and the knowledge and experience that you've learned, Dominic. And definitely, we're fortunate to have you here. So definitely, today's subject is going to be called in all your twists and turns and journeys. Tell us about the subject today is working smarter, not harder, right? That
Yeah.
I always say the same thing. It's like people like I recently did a post on a 1 day class we're having. I said, yeah, this 1 day class could have these results. And then somebody said, there's no way you could teach that 1 day. And I said, well, really, it's not a matter of doing more work. It's doing the right thing I always say small thing that's done the right way can achieve big results. Have you found that to be true,
Yeah.
Dominic?
Yeah. And another, a sweet way to say that is small hinges swing big doors.
Wow, that's
But
a good. I'm gonna have to borrow that one from you. That's a
take
good
it.
one.
It's
I like that
yours.
one.
I'm
Got
gonna
it.
give, I don't, it's not mine to give, but listen, you know what? I want to give everybody a visual because you bring up a really good point is like, how can we accomplish that much in such a short amount of time? And this is all about working smarter, not harder. But let me give credit to all the business owners out there by giving you an image. I want you to think to the Summer Olympics, and we're going to think about when the weightlifting comes on. You see some big, massive guy. He's got hair poking out of his chest and everywhere in his body, and he's wearing this crazy red singlet that's a little awkward to look at, right?
Hmm?
He walks out on stage and he's going to lift this massive, ridiculous bar over his head,
Hmm.
right? So he walks up to it, grips it, takes in a deep breath, maybe gives a groan and a grunt, and up it goes. And he lifts this massive weight over his head. And you think, that is ridiculous.
Wow,
That is a
it
business
is.
owner.
It is ridiculous.
It's
That is.
ridiculous. And that's a business owner. Because
Hmm.
when you've built your business to $1 million or $2 million and you're standing there on your own and it's up above your head, you're the only thing holding that up. And you've accomplished, I can work hard. But, people like me and you, Joe, we're standing there beside that weightlifter and we're like, hey, we should, why don't we build you a rack so you could put that thing down? And those are the
That's
simple
good. Yeah.
systems, right? But it's that perspective. And then the business owner can drop their arms and look back and go, wow, I got that thing up to $1 million, $2 million, $3 million.
Mm.
Now what can I do? Because now we've got a rack. That's a simple system.
That is. It's something where you don't have to lift it quite as far. It's already just putting it on the rack makes you not have to lift it from the ground. You could lift it from a standing place a little
That's
higher.
right. Yeah.
Dominic, why don't you start by telling us just a few of the things that in your travels and vast experience that you got, finally you get to share all your golden nuggets because I know you get so many when you're doing your podcast
Mm.
and you're enrich you not only push the podcast forward, and I listen to the podcast all the time, so I'm definitely, as a listener, I can definitely give you a testimony myself, and I probably should go in there and give you. I'll go on Apple and give you a review. How's that
Thank
sound
you.
today? I'll
I'll
go
do
do
that
that for
today
you.
as for you as well. Yeah.
I'll do that for you. But tell us about some of the things that you can impart your wisdom and things you learned from digging back out of that hole and finding your mentors and things like that. So, what are some of the things that we can do to work smarter, not harder? Both as could be an employee, could be an owner, could be anybody
Right.
in this business. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, let's do that. That is actually a great place to start. And I haven't always been an entrepreneur. I started on a sales path. That's where I got into business. I think one of the most important things to do is go have a coffee by yourself with a blank piece of paper and a pen and just write out what your goals are. As simple as what's your list of to-dos today, but also what are your goals? And a lot of business owners and sales professionals don't allow themselves the time to plan,
Mm-hmm.
to build a plan. And you know what they say that, no plan survives first contact with the enemy, if the enemy is the world. But having a plan is where the confidence comes. For those of you who are in sales, you should have a pre-call plan. Before you go into a sales meeting, you should already know what the objections are going to be, what your goal is going to be. And if you really want to be great as a salesperson, you should have an after call meeting with yourself. What went well? What didn't go well? How could I be better? If you're a business owner, you should be planning just once a week. Buy yourself a coffee. Work, work from the neck up. That's what working smarter is.
Mm-hmm.
We're now
Mm-hmm.
working from the neck up, not the neck down.
Mm, that's good. I mean, so well, I like the thing about making goals because I think that is something that drives us. If we're clear and the goal has a certain vision that has clarity in that goal, can you give us some of the advice that you could give us to? Because creating goals is a pretty big subject, and if we
Mm,
just sat down and said, "What are my goals?" It's hard to. Sometimes we have a mental block, if you will, right? What are
yeah.
some of the things that small things that we can do, to small hinge, if you will, that can swing that big door of those goals to kind of get you started on that path? Because I'm sure that you can help us as a starting point to kind of get the thing moving there. Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does. So the very first thing, and I don't know if you're driving, don't take notes, but if you're not driving, then I'd like you to write down these categories. Write down the categories of people, process, systems, execution, and cash. Just write those things down.
Mm.
Now, I'm coming at this completely from a business perspective.
Yeah.
There's something that we use called a healthy, wealthy, wise planner, which is much more holistic. But just from a business perspective, do this as an exercise. So next to the word people, what are your goals? What are your challenges? What are your opportunities? And then next to process, do the same thing. People, process, systems, execution, and cash. And by the way, instead of the word execution, because I don't mean you're going to kill something, it's really implementation, right? Execution is getting stuff done.
Mm.
So
That's really
it's,
smart. I love that. So people, process,
yep.
execution, and cash. Those are the things you said there. Those are the 4
I'll
things.
repeat it one more time. People,
Mm-hmm.
process, systems,
Mm.
execution, and cash.
Nice. Yeah, because I mean, immediately as soon as you said that, I start thinking about people in my organization. Like, who are the people that I
Yeah.
need to help enhance my relationship, or to try to build something that I can see for that person. That sometimes we have employees as an owner of a company, and we see things that are better than they see themselves, right? So sometimes we can share that vision for the employee to motivate them and give them that vision in a way for employees if they lack it. But I think for us, it also helps us create a vision of a certain employee or people we would like to have on our team, and the type of person to kind of shape that as well, right? That kind of
Yeah.
goal in a way.
Yeah. Share the goal with them. Let them know. Look, I have high expectations and I know you can meet them. So I'd like to see this change as the next part of your growth. Boom.
I
There
guess you
you
could say
go.
the same thing with your family, right? What kind of systems do I
You have to
have
use
to eat
different
better?
words.
Not really, not really though. I mean, think about it. The people in my family, the systems that I have to be healthy in my home, to be healthy and eat the right way, and the processes that I'm going to, how am I going to shop for these groceries? How am I going to make time for that?
Yeah.
There's different. It really templates into a bigger subject. I'm not trying to take you outside of business, but
No.
truthfully, you could make this into something that really is a great tool that could be used in really anything in your life, it seems like.
So that's it's very similar to the tool that I was speaking about earlier. We have something called the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Planner we talk about on the show.
Hmm.
And typically it's a New Year's thing. We do it in January. Sometimes we'll do it right after summer break, in beginning of September after the August long weekend. But the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Planner, you have to imagine a grid with 3 columns and 3 rows. So
Hmm.
healthy, wealthy, wise, business, personal, and family.
Hmm.
And so in the intersection of all of those things, start to think about your business or your life or your family against those criteria. So what does it mean to me to be wise as a family person? So obviously I'm a father. Like, what does it mean to be a wise father? When you started the episode, you so perfectly said, let's talk about working smarter, not harder. So working smarter just means forcing ourselves through these success funnels to make sure that we're seeing the world the right way and setting up our expectations for what we need to accomplish. And all these little tricks I've just shared here, those are simple systems.
Hmm. You know what? I just realized one of the people I need to spend more time with is Dominic Rubino. Uh,
Thank you, sir.
but
I
I did.
appreciate that.
I opened up that small hinge, opened up a big door for me, and thanks
Yeah, there you go. Right.
for making that, because I really think it's some great methodology, and I love when people do, like, sometimes we get so locked into our own way of doing something. I have my own way on that, my methodology, but truthfully, when I open that door to something else, it's like, yeah, that attacks it from a different angle that sometimes can be helpful, because not everybody learns the same way. Everybody does think the same
Yeah.
way. And I think sometimes we get the destination, we have to be flexible on the way we take the journey, I guess. Right? Does that make sense, sir?
Yeah, I appreciate that you said that because people, you probably get this as well, Joe. People will say, Joe, what's the one book I should read? And
Mhm.
and I have an answer for that. I'm like, all of them. There's no one book. Some are better, some are worse. But what I think is the greatest book ever might have been the 90th book I read on that topic.
Mhm.
Sorry, let me ask. I asked it as a question, then I answered it. Joe, what do
Yeah.
you say when somebody says to you, "What's the one book or the one course I should read or take?"
Well, it's an unfair question, because right now it's this one.
Yeah, for those of you who can't see
But
the YouTube video, Joe just held up. Hold it up again, Joe, please. This is your show. Let's
hold
see
up
it.
my own book. That's hold up this one here. So, but truthfully, I do the same thing. I give them a range of books, and really, the last one I share is mine. As I said, if you the Success Principle by Jack Canfield, the Michael Gerber E-Myth, the book of E-Myth is impactful. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I mean, I got the list, a
Yeah.
reading list of Uncle Joe that really, that's the thing that kind of built my legacy, is the foundation of those principles and values that I espouse in those books. And truthfully, Dominic, although those are great values, I'm a human and I fall short a lot of times. But at least I know how to get back on that track again. Does that make sense, or that's
It does. And I'm so glad you said that. I would hate for anybody to listen to this episode and think that you and I have it all figured out. When I go back to that intersection where I wanted to get hit by another car, I knew I didn't have it figured out, but I also didn't give up. What happened? What did I learn from how bad today was that I will never repeat again? And that's that, that's just that honesty of saying, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm going to go get it figured out.
What are some other things you can do for working smarter and not harder, Dominic?
Well, you mentioned books, or we were just talking about books. One of the things that I found to be a real game changer for business owners is having a strategic plan, like really a solid strategic plan. And it doesn't have to be fancy. You just want to download everything from your brain onto a piece of paper. But that paper then becomes the boss, if you will. And you just want to shoulder check that piece of paper. Don't change the paper. Keep that same piece of paper for maybe 3 years and work towards those goals. One of the worst things, and Joe, you may have seen this as well. I've done this in my own companies, is I walk in on a Monday and I'm like, hey team, I just read this book, the 5 Dysfunction of the Team by Patrick Lencioni. And so I get the team all hyped up and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And then I know what they're saying to each other. Just wait till Wednesday. He'll forget. Right. And then maybe I read your book and I come in the next week and I'm like, what's the title of this one? Because you've written a few. What should we do?
What should we do? That's the name of the book. Yeah.
Okay. So I come in the next Monday and I'm like, hey guys, I just read this book by Joe Crisara. I was a guest on the show. Game changer. What should we do? And everybody in the back of the room is like, wait till Wednesday.
Exactly.
I don't want to be that guy. Just stick and stay. Pick one thing and work on it until it's done.
It's interesting you say that, because I remember when I was in business and I was kind of lost. I had a very similar, situation. We come from a very similar. Probably mine happened earlier than yours in the early '90s, but I did see one of the things you mentioned, process, in the goals you mentioned, the process. And I remember getting one of the things I could say, I got out of my office and went to go see other places. And when I did see that, I saw a different process than I was using. And that kind of inspired me. Like, once I knew the process, like basically I said, tell me how does this business work in a way? Tell me how it works from the time the phone is answered all the way through the end. Just take me through a journey of the customer experience in a way. And from that, it helped me design and motivate me for my own business. So how important is that, to kind of see the vision somewhere else and get off your butt and get out there and see the world and go look at different businesses. Ask them how it works. How does this business work?
Yeah. Just be curious. So first of all, I've given up thinking I have all the answers. I don't. I have great questions, but I don't have all the answers. But I really appreciate your question, because one of the things that I've noticed is that the most successful business people I've ever worked with, the people that work with me are already successful. They want to get more successful. That's a real word, Joe. Successful.
I'm with you. I'll stand behind you on that one. You lie and I'll swear to it.
But one of the things that I've noticed, and I wonder if you see the same thing, is that those people join industry associations. They go on tours. They're not afraid to go to a workshop. The people who are afraid to go to a workshop say, I don't want to go to that thing. He's going to try and sell me something. Yeah, he probably is, but you could say no. It's a free country. But go there and get the information. Go on that tour. Join your trade association. Join your local, builders, HVAC association, mechanical contract. What is the harm in hearing other people talk about their business? What if you actually learn something? The alternative is where you leave your house, you drive to the shop, you work at the shop, and then you drive home, and you start to think that that's the world, and it's not.
That is true. You're stuck in your little bubble. I think that's one of the things that makes us work smarter, is to see what other people are doing smarter and to be able to incorporate that into your business or into your day or into your plan. I think, it's funny, because when I used to go out and do ride-alongs with other salespeople.
Sure.
It's interesting how I would have my own knowledge I would impart on them, but then I saw things that they did that, I told them, I said, wow, I think I just learned as much in this ride along with you than you learned from me. We both learned from each other,
Right.
and it was a sharing and caring, really, and it was created some great relationships over the period of time. But I think kind of seeing that vision that other people think. So even the association meetings, I think that's great. But going down deeper and saying, hey, let me come out to your shop and visit you
Absolutely.
specifically. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I love it. Well, and the reason I brought that up from your comment is because a lot of the association groups will do a tour. They'll say, let's go see
Yes.
this guy's tour, and it could be a sheet metal fabrication shop. It doesn't matter. Go look,
Hmm.
go see
Hmm.
how they're, manufacturing or how they imagine if you found a new racking system or a different way for storing materials inside a canopy instead of a van. I don't know, but what if somebody had a better idea than I did? Actually, Joe, you and I are old. I'm old anyways. Your hair is different. Your hair is darker
I'm
than mine.
I'm older. I'm older probably, but
Do you,
that's okay. I
do
just
you
I just give
remember?
it good.
Sorry?
I just color my hair. That's the only
Oh, okay.
difference.
Okay. Well, I don't. I'm just an old silverback here.
Yeah.
Um, but do you remember the old days? And I remember this as a business coach. I'd be talking to a business owner. He's got a fleet of, let's say, 6, 10 trucks. He's like,
Mhm.
we need more money. We need to increase sales and its systems or problem. I'm like, let's go and look at the vans. I'm like, why? Nothing to do with operating. Let's go look at the vans. And we go look at the vans. And I would say, let's look behind the driver's seat
Mm.
and all the unfilled visa slips that
Mhm.
were behind the seat. Because in the old days, you take that visa transaction,
Mhm.
the driver would throw it on the seat, go back into the back of the truck, put all this stuff away, then jump in and sit on the papers. And of course, that visa slip would fall to the back, and
Oh boy,
untold thousands of dollars
that's crazy.
were just behind the seats of the vans, never
That's working
built.
smarter, not harder, right? Doing
That's
a
right.
truck inspection. It's
Yeah.
funny because I used to I have a book called the Inventory Turnkey Inventory System I created that's talks about doing a truck, basically a truck inventory. Pretty much every week you're doing an inspection, because I
Hmm.
remember I seen the autopsy where you have the slips from the Visa cards and also just a bunch of extra materials people put behind their shelving racks and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's like, what's that? One time a guy had 69 clock thermostats, or those temperature thermostats they had behind the rack they had stacked up. I'm like, what's this guy doing? It's like he's like
And what's the unit cost on those that you're carrying?
yeah, they were $110 each for one of those things back then, so it was crazy. So he had literally $1,000 in stuff sitting back there,
Yeah,
it's
Joe,
crazy.
I think you've just caused yourself a problem because I need a guest on my show who can talk about rolling stock inventory. Do you know a guy?
Oh my goodness. Well, you know what? I got a book on it, and I'll be give it to people for free if they want it. That's truthfully, I used to sell the book, but now I'm like, you know what? It's so needed. It's not even what I do, but I actually it was such a confounding and frustrating part of the business
Yeah.
that truck inspections and truck inventory is one of my superpowers, and it's like a little known superpower that people know I have, but now you know,
I'm
so
so
that's
happy we're
great.
doing this. So there, all you've done is build yourself more work. But I'd love to have you on the show to talk about that. Anyway, sorry, back to you.
Not a problem. No. Well, thank you. Well, Dominic, unfortunately, as you know, I could probably talk to you for hours, and I think you said something similar to me at the end
Yeah,
of
I
my
did.
podcast.
It's very easy
But
to talk to.
unfortunately, our time is coming to an end. Yeah, you got any final thoughts you want to go ahead and give us? Final golden nuggets you want to impart on us here before we leave?
The highest level thing I could say is to go buy yourself a cup of coffee and do the healthy, wealthy, wise planner.
Hmm.
That'll
And
cover
where can
all the base.
is there any way people can get that from you, Dominic?
Sure.
Is there a way?
Yeah. I mean, the simplest thing, just text me. Can I give my cell phone number here?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So my cell number is 315-903-7853. And then just say healthy, wealthy, wise in the message, and then I'll know which one to send back. But that would be the greatest impact I think we could have. It would cover a lot of scope for a lot of people.
Hmm. And Dominic, how can people find you although they have the personal cell phone number, which
Yeah,
is
right. I guess that's true.
maybe a little intimidating. Like I'm gonna take the guy from the Brian Tracy group and just
Yeah.
call him directly. That's like it might be a little. So how can people get a hold of you? I know we have the go ahead and say the name and the destination of your podcast and how people can find you.
Yeah, that's actually the best way to do it is come join me and listen on the Profit Toolbelt podcast. Joe was a guest there, so you can hear more Joe. But I have other guests as well. And it's really about the business of the contracting business. And then of course you can find Joe and myself on LinkedIn, which is a great way to do things, especially for professionals like ourselves. So any way that you could find me, I'm happy to hear from you.
Well, definitely you are pure. I'm going to hereby give you the highest honor that Service MVP can give somebody is called the Pure Motive Service Award. So you got that award coming. I'm going to make sure
Thank you.
you could post that in your window or put it on your truck.
I love it. Well, thank
Going
you.
to decal.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's definitely you have the heart of service, Dominic, and that's why I love people. I strive to be with people like you because it kind of pulls me the direction I really want to go, which is to serve other people first and create
Right.
value first, which is I think what you do too. And I want to say thank you for the service you provide the trades, and thanks for the kindness and respect that you shown me, and I really appreciate that so much.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks to everybody for listening.
Thanks, Dominic. Have a great one. We'll talk to everybody later.